Hi, my name's Keith Cooper and Northlight Images. I just recently did a video looking at this thing I'd made, which is a folded hinge board camera mount for macro photography. Now the key element of it, I had some stuff sort of stacked up here for adjusting things, and I've got a rail here for moving. You could have any sort of rail, but the key element of this is the idea of the piano hinge along here, which allows a smooth movement. And the whole idea of it was because often with macro photography, I need to change the angle I'm looking down on a subject ever so slightly to get the right view with multiple objects, how they overlap and things like that. But anyway, I just thought I'd show this as a quick example of how I'd actually use it. I have, since making that video, actually used this for not this particular camera. This is my EOS RP, but I have actually used this setup for some macro photography for a client, some chip photos and various things. But with this one, I've got a TTArtisan 100mm tilt lens. It's a tilt shift lens. It's a macro, 2x macro. Now I wanted to show just a bit of the use of tilt here. Now normally this, if you locked it off the lens, it would work just fine. And here's the tilt. And as the lens tilting, you can see how the field of view changes when I move it. I've got a live view showing here. I'm using Helicon Focus. This is Helicon Capture, Helicon Remote for actually controlling the camera. And then I've got some examples of pictures that I've taken. But as you see, the lens is tilted down here. Now with tilt like this, as you tilt lens down, the plane of focus goes like that. Now you would think I just adjust the tilt and I can have the plane of focus running dead flat along this bit of board here. Now, yes, you can, but it turns out that the closer you focus on the lens, the less the effect of tilt is. Now, I've covered this elsewhere in a few things, but the lens, the tilt here, this is at maximum tilt, and the reason I'm this far away from the subject here is this is as much as tilt of the plane of focus as I can get with this lens at this magnification. Now this is a 2x macro. If I use this at 2x macro, the focal point is much closer, but the amount of tilt I'd be able to get on it is quite small, enough that you probably wouldn't even bother using it. Now you can, and one of the reasons I've got this attached here to a StackShot rail, this is a motorised rail, there's a controller here, it's controlled by the software, so I'm actually controlling the movement of this directly from the software running here. It's running on my Mac Studio behind here. You know, it works on PC as well, but this is just what I've got set up here. Now, as it's set up, I've got the rail set at a certain distance, and the plane of focus is running roughly along this card here. You can see there's the coin here is sharp in focus, but the top of the little cars is out of focus. Now if I move this, and there we go, I've just set beginning and end points for this. The steps, I can adjust this. Now if you're curious about Helicon Capture, Helicon and stacking, I've got 3 very detailed reviews looking at, or articles looking at aspects of stacking for macro. But it's something I use all the time, but not like this. Normally I don't use a tilt lens because I'm working close up. You don't get much movement of the plane of focus, but I wanted to test this particular lens and see how well it done. And there it is. We can now see that I've moved the lens, the camera backwards, and the plane of focus has effectively, it's still flat parallel with this card here, but it's now touching the top of the little cars. And the coin is slightly out of focus. Now what I would do with this is actually run it to take it. Now I would use a separate light I've got here. Messes up the video if I turn the lights on for it, so you just have to go with what I've got here, but I have a light for it. So I would take a set of shots. I would decide how many shots I want between the start and stop position. It will process them all, it will take the shots, and then I can open those pictures, Now this is taking RAW and JPEG, so I'm just stacking the JPEGs just easier, but yeah, if you want extra quality you can use the RAW files if you need to process them for lighting or something like that. But in this I've set the white balance on this to auto white balance, and it's giving a fairly good estimate of the colour here. Now if I take, here is the stacked image. This is after I've stacked it, and you can see everything is sharp. It's actually rather good. I would normally, if I was doing a stacked image like this, with the plane of focus like this, I would stack depth-wise. So I would stack from focus here to focus here, and then stack the images like that. But by stacking tilted planes, I'm needing less pictures. I'm getting quite a good overlap, and it works. Now I'm not sure when I would actually, for actual projects, want to use a stacked tilted image, but I wanted to see that it was okay, and I wanted to check that Helicon Focus would actually handle the images, and it handles them very well. I've used the basic depth map for this, and one of the bits of it, it allows you as an output from it. Normally I'm just after a straight photo, but you can use the depth map information and create an animation. Now this is using the depth map combined with all the images to produce a sort of 3D animation. Now obviously nothing has moved here apart from the camera moving backwards and forwards, so it's not quite right, but it's an interesting looking effect. And so I've cut this into the video here so you can see it. I've just produced, this is an output option from it. So there we got, basic quick setup. I'm using a rail here. The camera is offset on this axis just purely because the mount that I've got fitted to the camera, so I can use it. But I can see the live view on the back here. I can check the focus. I'm using this at f5.6 or thereabouts. It works very well. The lens works well. You can't actually get this lens anymore. I was sent it to have a look at, and then I was told shortly afterwards that it was being discontinued. So if you look for one, be very careful, because one of the reasons I can see the ease of how I'm moving this. Well, the movements are quite slack. You need to be very careful. If I lock this down, there's still a bit of movement on it. It's a lovely lens as a macro lens, but as a tilt shift lens, it leaves a little bit to be desired in its practicalities. The one thing I did mention, the fact that the field of view changes when you tilt it. It's because the lens is tilting back about an axis back here, not about an axis for the lens itself. So if you imagine that that was a lens, normally if you're tilting, you want to tilt your lens like that, but this is tilting it like that, and that causes a few issues on that, but it's a nice enough lens. I add it to my collection of macro lenses. It works very well as a 2x macro. The tilt and the shift are not as useful as people might think it is. For a 100mm tilt lens, at normal lens, yes, you can do all the effects you'd do with tilt, but it's a macro lens. Always be wary when you see some of the tilt shift lens with macro, much like the Canon ones that say macro on them. Yes, they focus close, but unless you've got an awful lot of tilt, you don't get much movement of the plane. Hopefully that's helped. So I'll be using this for a few more bits now I've built it. It works very well. It does everything I wanted for it. I've already got some more work, some more shots I've got to do. They are looking straight down on things, so I'll be able to do that by not stretching the cables here, but by tilting this up so that it's looking down directly. I do need to work on the actual support at the back here a bit more. It's still a bit prone to, well, not collapsing, but it's not quite as rigid as I might like. But anyway, there is the actual thing that I made the other day in use. No fancy stands here, that's over there. You don't need a motorised rail like this. You could use a manual one. You can find all the bits and pieces for stuff like this on eBay. You'll be able to find them quite, sliders, setting and things like that. Dead easy to do. So there you have it. I hope that's of some interest. If you've got questions, please do let me know. So now I've built this, I'm going to be using it anyway, but if there's anything you want to know about sort of macro stuff, sort of stuff here, and I do now I've got this working, I have some much higher magnification lenses to test out with it. Now I know how solid this is and that it all seems to work. But thanks for watching. Bye.